Hello everyone and welcome to this week's webinar. We're with Mark Rhoden, our New South Wales analyst, and we are going to preview the Golden Rose Stakes. But before we kick that off, Mark, you were a bit delayed today with one of your races. How did it go, just out of interest?
It was good. Yes, I was slightly held up then. We had one betting race at Hawkesbury today. Back to two runners, spin bowls who couldn't run a place, but fortunately we were on Cyclonite, who was back from $9.50 this morning into best total of $5 and jumped straight to the front and won by about 3. So yeah, if we could keep that run going into the weekend, it'd be more than acceptable.
Absolutely fantastic, mate. Your subscription is flying at the moment, and everyone is obviously excited, but we're all excited because it's that time of year. The big races are back, and last week you got us into Home of the Brave, and it duly saluted. It was a fantastic run. It just kept finding.
It was that. Yes, that was the race a couple of weeks back. We went through. It was only a small field, and I think from memory I had it marked second favourite, very very close to top pick actually, and it was a nice price at the time, and it got bigger on the day. It was $6.70 on the best tote, and yeah, it was a terrific win and a great result for the members too.
Yeah, apologies, it was 2 weeks out. I'm backing up again this week, and it's favourite and should do well at Caulfield. Mate, I will throw over to you and, take us through the Golden Rose.
Okay. Not a huge field in the Golden Rose this year. We've only got 11 at this stage, and Longleaf is likely to come out because of its wide barrier by all reports, so we'll probably be left with 10 at the most. We'll have a look at what I've done with the speed map for the race here. We'll flick over for us. Here we go, heading to the right of screen. I thought Jakka might lead. I've got Denawi from its wider gate sitting out 3 wide. I mean, in all likelihood, he'll do one or the other. I expect he'll push on and sit outside the leader, which should ensure it's a pretty good pace. Jonka's having its first go at 1400, like a few of them are in the race. So they might want to hold up a bit, but there's a few of those 6 furlong horses who will be looking for position early, and I suspect the speed will be okay at least. But I thought Santos, although he probably has the speed to be right up there with him if he wanted to, would take a sit. He's backing up from 1100 last week, where he had no luck, straight up to 1400 in the Golden Rose. I wouldn't expect they'd really want to gas him early under those circumstances. Got Graff and Tchaikovsky taking a sit here. Sein's drawn 1. He might try and make a bit more use of that, but I think he'll be fairly handy in the midfield in that range. Back here, we'll ignore Longleaf, probably a scratching. Waymain Machine got a long way back, or has got a long way back in most of its runs, so I can't see it being much closer. Seabrook back from the gate, and this is the interesting one here, the Autumn Sun, who has been touted as one of the main chances for a few months now for this race. He's drawn 10. Probably be the extreme outside barrier on Saturday. Not impossible that he gets in, but it's going to take a very neat bit of riding to do so. So it does make his task that little bit harder. All right, so we'll just go back to the main sheet here. I won't spend too much time explaining ins and outs of this. We'll just do this in exactly the same format as we did 2 weeks ago. So if you tuned in then, it'll be familiar. I've also done other webinars explaining my sort of form process in more detail, so they're available as well. Basically, I've given this race a figure on our scale of 106, which is then translated into a to-do figure, a job figure for each of the runners in the race, depending on what weight they're carrying. We've got the history of the race down the bottom of the page here, the last few years, and you'll notice 106 is actually quite low compared to how it's gone in the last 3 years. Trapeze Artist went 113, Astern 111, Exosphere 113. The way we rated them, 106 does seem low, but you'll notice here the margins in all 3 of those cases were quite big. They were on the day a clear class above their rivals. If you go back a bit further in history, Hallowed Crown, Zoo Star and Epaulette, none of them actually got above 106 on the day. So, or the race didn't go above 106 on the day. So I think just as a sort of, an average start point, I'm happy with that. And from that, we'll derive the ratings I think each horse needs to do to win the race. There's only one filly in the race, Seabrook, so all the colts carry the same weight, obviously. So it's going to be the same for each horse. Anyway, we'll go through them. And we start with Waymain Machine, who was brilliant in winning the Run to the Rose last start, the main lead-up. He was big odds that day, $13, but he settled back, got a good run through on the fence. I was held up slightly at the top of the straight, kept coming through, and was brilliant late, really, and got up to win by almost a length. You'll see over in the ratings column, his first couple of preps, we didn't have him going anywhere near that sort of figure. He's really jumped out of the ground and gone from a previous best of 102 to 110 the other day, which is translates to about a 4-length improvement. I tend to think that having a good run through on the inside, if not flattered him, certainly was advantageous. Graff was doing it very tough 3 wide in the same race. Also, just as a general principle, when a horse comes back, with a sort of spike rating like that, I tend to be a little bit sceptical about them backing it up twice in a row. Not to say it's totally out of the question. He might have just come back a much better horse. Just bearing those bearing those factors in consideration, I've taken him back 2 points and assessed him off 108, which is still enough to win the race, as we can see in that job box there. He needs 107.8, roughly 108. So he's right in the race, even with that penalty. He also will get back, which is never a huge plus in my opinion. So that's where we landed with him. We knocked him back about 2 points off his big peak first up. We'll scroll through now to the Autumn Sun. As we touched on, his biggest obstacle might be his barrier 10. He's got blinkers on for the first time. Obviously this has been a target, or one of his targets, for a long time. We can expect him to be fit, wound up and ready to go. Just that gait is holding me back from really giving him everything. Another one with a bit of a get-back racing style. I suppose there's a chance they might drag him all the way back to last and just try and out-kick them in the straight. That brings its own obstacles as well. So, the 10's not really going to be a great help, I don't think. He progressed very nicely through the autumn and winter there, 102 up to 107. That's telling me he's got another level in him, working in rough 5-point increments as we do. At least 112 will be his next level. He got into trouble on the heavy track first up. He was first up at 1500 too, and he's back to 1400 here. I actually quite like that. I think that will just bring him on perfectly. So fitness-wise and bearing everything and natural improvement, taking all that into account, I'd like to give him about 110, but again, like his stablemate Waymain Machine, there's just a couple of little negatives, and I found myself forced to penalise him back to 108 also. So I've actually got the 2 stablemates exactly on the same mark. Anyway, moving on to Sein, another Waller runner. He started quite short in the market the other day against Waymain Machine and Graff, and he was sort of back with Waymain Machine, and he took off round them on a limb when Waymain Machine stuck to the fence, and Sein got tired late, whereas Waymain Machine obviously was very strong to the line. A couple of winners later in the day did come wide that day, but up to that point it had been a plus to be making a run up the inside. So whether he was disadvantaged, I don't really know. I mean, he should be fitter, and everything you hear Chris Waller say about this horse is, and he's got quite a few Zoo Stars as well, and he trained Zoo Star himself. He said this is the one that reminds him most of his sire. So I mean, that's a pretty big rap. So it wouldn't be at all surprised to see him make some improvement this preparation as a 3-year-old. Gets a good run with McDonald from 1. There's a few in his favour. I've marked him up 107, which is slightly behind his 2 stablemates. And I'm happy enough with that at this stage. To give him more than that would really be projecting him and marking, pricing him on potential, which can be fraught with danger unless you've got a lot of evidence to back it up. So, I mean, I still have given him a mark better than he's ever done before. So I have allowed him some improvement, but I think it's the right amount of improvement. So I've left him at 107. Moving along now to Graff. Brilliant winner of the San Domenico first up over 1100. On the strength of that, was made $3 favourite in the run to the Rose, despite drawing barrier 11, which I thought was always going to be a problem for him, and that's exactly the way it panned out. He didn't get in. He was still boxing on at the 100, and Waymain Machine came through with the benefit of that inside run and kicked him in the last 100. To me, however, it was every bit as good a run as the winner. And from what I saw first up when he rated 110 in the San Domenico, he really didn't do anything the other day to stop me thinking that we've got a pretty fair horse on our hands here. Again, he's another one who's made the jump from his autumn marks to the spring. He trialled well before that, and he backed it up in a race. And even though he's gone backwards there were excuses for that. I think he's shown that he is comfortable at that level now, and that's what his level is now. He really is a better horse this prep. The one slight niggle is that was a very hard run the other day. I'm not really worried about the 1400. He's done it at 1300 already as a 1 and 2-year-old. But yeah, that was a tough run on a wet track. It could have taken something out of him. But if he's fitting well and firing, I do think he's probably the one to beat, and I've ended up marking him favourite. On to number 5, which is Sandbar. Sandbar won the Rosebud first up, which was a bit of a second rank lead up to this race for the earlier resumers. He rated 106, which was comparative to his best 2-year-old figure, running second in the Pago written by. That's good form, and the first up win was good. It is 1100 metre form. They put the blinkers on him, so he'll be up in the firing line at his first try out to 1400. He raced on the pace the other day in the run to the Rose, and there's no denying he did get tired late. That might have been due to the wet track. It might have been due to the pressure. I think, and this is a pretty genuine Group 1 field of 3-year-olds at an unfamiliar trip. I think the pressure might get him again, and I've priced him out of the market, to be honest. Right, we move on to Santos. It's a bit of a sad story for our members, this one, and myself personally. I thought I marked him favourite last week against Neutrality in the Heritage Stakes. I thought he was a really good bet. He just never got a crack at them at any stage. He sort of got stuck behind a 40-1 chance or 20-1 chance in Omar, and he didn't really get a crack at them. Whether he would have won, I don't know. The winner, Ragged Rascal, did go very well. I don't know if he would have won, but he certainly had a lot more to offer than he was able to show. As we can see, his best figure is 109, which he did also at the Randwick 1100. If you were prepared to say he could do that at the Rosehill 1400, it'd obviously be a definite chance. I'm doubtful he can. I'm not questioning his ability. He really did seem set for a first up tilt the other day. He does seem more of a pure sprinting type to me, and I heard Adrian Bott quoted as, or read Adrian Bott quoted as saying that the owners were very keen to back up and have a crack at the Group 1 here, which makes it appear to me that this is really an afterthought, and backing up 1100 to 1400 in a week second up is a task at the best of times. Concede him some chance just on his ability and the figures he's been able to record so far, but there is a bit against him. On to Jakka. A little bit in the same boat as Sandbar, although he stuck on a lot better than Sandbar in the run to the Rose. He actually let him up there, and he'll be up there again, even though the blinkers are off. He'll be in the first 3 anyway. Wherever they exactly land remains to be seen. But yeah, he was only beaten a length by Waymain Machine and Graff, but just the sort of horse he is, I think that might have been that might be about him. 1200, that is. So I've penalised him off the peak mark of 107. Also, leading on the fence, as I touched on earlier, that day was probably a plus. So 107 is probably all we can do with everything going his way. That's probably still not enough to win the race. and I've got to factor in those negatives about the trip and neck pressure and all that sort of stuff as well. So I've been a bit hard on him too. On to Longleaf. Yeah, won't spend too much time on Longleaf. Everything I've read is that Barry 11's getting rid of him and they're waiting a week, I think. Even if they do run, he will be dragged back to last and he would have to make significant improvement to win here. So, yes, we just won't spend too much time on him. What have we got next? It's, excuse me, I'm on too many. Denawi, who our members had a nice win on here in the Ming Dynasty when he won by the narrowest of margins from Mizzy. He led and held on that day. He showed a couple of signs that day that he really felt it that day. My little personal comment there, that sign means he was hanging out. Me, it all means I think he'd had enough on the line. And that meant last week in the Stan Fox up to 1500 was going to be a problem, and also he may be over the top for this preparation. You see his pattern of ratings, they've gone 103, 106, 104, then right off back to 97. You could put forward the wetter track the other day, the heavy 8, as a reason for that. Certainly possible. He needs a quick bounce off a pretty weak run to a new peak level to win this race, so I can't have him. He's big odds in my market. Tchaikovsky is an interesting runner. The next one. On figures, he's not there. He's had a month off since being well beaten by Graff in the San Domenico. So it'll be some sort of training performance to get him to win this. Group 1 second up at 1400 off a month's break. The only thing I could put forward in his favour is this was a very nice trial last Thursday at Randwick. And if anyone could pull off a training coup like this, it would be the Snowden. So even though I've priced him pretty big, of the roughies, he's the one I would be maybe least surprised to run a place, or even better than that. I couldn't recommend backing him myself, but by any means. But it's one that if it did jump over the ground, I wouldn't be at all surprised. Which brings us to, last but not least, the lone filly in the field, Seabrook. Interestingly, although this is a set weights race, she has the highest handicap mark by about 7 points of any horse in this race because of her. Oh, she's one winner, obviously, the Champagne Stakes. So if you like to bet off handicap ratings, she's 7 points clear of anything else and getting a 2 kilo weight advantage. So if you were just pricing off the official marks, you'd have her odds on, but I don't think anyone will. That Champagne she won was a weaker race than this. She needs to find 106 to be competitive in this. She was 105 that day. She ran okay over 1200 at Caulfield first up. Well beaten behind Native Soldier, but it was a good enough run. I didn't really see anything in that to suggest she'll go better than her previous best, so that's what I've assessed her off and got her about a 10 to 1 chance. Assuming from gate 9, I will just drag her back 2 and let her find the line. So that's a brief outline of why I've given the horses the marks they have and then converting them into prices. Go back to the top sheet down here in the bottom left. You'll see Graff is clear top pick. This is actually an interesting, gives a little bit of insight into one of the ways I select my bets. This figure here, 0.087, tells me that in percentage terms, in terms of the differential between the price of the top pick and the second pick, there's 8.7%. And as I mentioned in other forums, horses that are 6% clear in percentage terms in my market are really the cornerstone of how I like to bet. Their strike rate is really good and their profit is really good too. So Graff fits that category. Looking at the prices though, if you have a market handy, you'll see that I'm pretty similar to the market on all the main chances. Just looking at the tabs market, for argument's sake, Graff's 340, Autumn Sun 420, Waymain Machine 550, Sein 750, Seabrook 11. So basically they've got my market with, you know, very little differences and just added in their percentage. So that might suggest it's a no bet race. I would say if I could get around the 350 mark or better on the day, I'll be recommending Graff as a bet. And that might seem strange to people who are, you know, used to the idea of value being just taking, you know, anything over your assessed price is value, and that certainly has merit. But I've done a hell of a lot of research on my own markets and the way I price, and those ones that are clear are still very profitable, taking what would be considered a small underlay, you know, what looks like a small bad value price. They still win, so I'm still happy to be on them. And basically, I'll just work out my stake to my assessed price. I won't have more on them because they're shorter than my assessed price, but I still want to be on them because they still make money, and I'll just stake them according to my assessed price. So we've got a couple of days to go, and Longleaf will come out. There'll be a slight adjustment to the market for that, I suppose. Not much. If Graff's still around 340, 350 on Saturday morning, don't be surprised if it's a recommended bet in the service, I'd be saying at this stage. And he's certainly my top pick for the reasons I outlined earlier.
Mark, thank you again.
No problem.
Guys, if you are interested in our New South Wales Winners subscription, please give us a call on 1300 500 057 or email us at team@championbets. He is absolutely flying at the moment, and you can see the detail that he goes into each race. Let's hope it's another home of the brave, Mark.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, I think we'll end up on this one too. So hopefully we can make it 2 out of 2 for these previews. That'd be great.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And Mark, thank you again.
No problem at all. Thanks for that.